Hello everybody and welcome to the entertainment headquarters and welcome to another review. And this time we're returning, that's right, we are returning to the galaxy far, far away for the first time since 2019, the disaster that was The Rise of Skywalker. We're heading back into the world of Star Wars, but this time we're not following a Jedi. We are not following the Skywalkers. We are following the Mandalorian and his little friend, Grogu, in the feature film based on the very successful show, The Mandalorian. This is Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's right, it is the feature film based on the hit show which Jon Favreau, who is the creator and the director of this particular film and the creator and director of the Mandalorian television show, I generally feel he, when it was much needed, gave Star Wars a fresh lick of paint. He gave it fresh blood. He took the world that is Star Wars and he took it in a different direction by showing us this character that, the Mandalorian himself, played by, of course, Pedro Pascal. He is, of course, playing Din Djarin, I think he's called. And, it was such a refreshing take on Star Wars, following this veteran bounty hunter as he's scouring the galaxy on these little mini quests. And then, of course, in the show, he meets Grogu. And speaking of Grogu, I couldn't leave the theatre without treating myself to the Grogu popcorn tin, which is quite nice. And then, of course, I did get myself the Mandalorian and Grogu, cinema cup. And then I also treated myself, since it was free and in the hallway, a lovely little The Mandalorian and Grogu poster. So I merged out from my visit in theatres. But going back to The Mandalorian and Grogu, like I say, Jon Favreau with this character, has definitely brought refreshness and brought something unique and different. And the first two seasons for me were really fun. And we had spin-offs like the Book of Boba Fett. We've had, Ahsoka. We've had the Obi-Wan Kenobi mini-series, which was fun as well. And I really would like an Obi-Wan Kenobi prequel trilogy film series, because I generally feel, I think Ewan McGregor would be fantastic to show how he goes from where he is now to the beginning of A New Hope. I think it would be fantastic. But hey-ho, let's get cracking and talk about The Mandalorian and Grogu. So, as stated, the Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu is a 2026 American science fiction film directed by Jon Favreau, who co-wrote the film with David Filoni and Noah Clough, produced by Lucasfilms and Fairview Entertainment and distributed by Walt Disney Studio Pictures. It is part of the Star Wars franchise and it is a continuation of the Disney Plus television series The Mandalorian. Pedro Pascal stars as Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, who also portrayed on set by Brendan Wayne and Latif Crowder. So there's three people portraying the Mandalorian, I'm assuming for the action sequences. And alongside Jeremy Allen White, Johnny Coyne, Martin Scorsese and Sigourney Weaver. In the film, which is set following the fall of the Galactic Empire, Djarin and his apprentice Grogu are enlisted by the New Republic to rescue Rotta the Hutt. in exchange for information on a target. So one thing about The Mandalorian, when I went into this film, I went in completely blind. I didn't read up on any of the information about the plot. I didn't read up on who was going to be in it, what returning characters were going to come back into it. I literally wanted to go into it blind. The only thing I knew is that they had Sigourney Weaver joining the cast, which I thought was a brilliant choice for the role that she plays. Very small role, but she does the job, what's written on the tin, what you expect of her in this kind of commander general type role. And of course, the big surprise was finding out Martin Scorsese was in this film, which I have never hardly seen him act in my life. So to see him in this film in a voice acting role was really pleasantly surprising to me. But let's talk about the plot. So the film starts off really strong, really does, with this amazing action sequence where Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Grogu are on this planet and they infiltrate what seems to be this hideout for the, this crime boss who also is connected to the fallen empire. And this, Din Djarin's there to get intel to try and figure out what the remnant of the empire are up to. And basically it's a full-on battle sequence with amazing battle against the AT-AT and, explosions, everything you expect from the Mandalorian in the first 10 minutes you get in this film, and it's outstanding. It's great effects, great battle sequences, and of course Pedro Pascal does a fantastic job. And then once you get past this, situation, of course, Sigourney Weaver's character is introduced, who plays Ward, who is like the leader of, or one of the leaders of the New Republic. And she basically sets the Mandalorian on a quest to capture another kind of gangster type villain who's known as Coin, to try and get information against the Empire that is still out there hiding somewhere. And a part of this deal is they need to rescue Jabba the Hutt's son, who is called Rotter the Hutt. Rotter the Hutt, who is kind of this, he's like a warrior. He's like a gladiator in this pit game on this planet Shakara. And the whole plot is basically they've got to save Rotter the Hutt. And if they save Rotter the Hutt, his auntie and uncle, who are the cousins of Jabba the Hutt, will then give General Ward information to find another person who was connected to the Empire. But as you can imagine, that is not goes to plan. There's secrets revealed, there is treachery afoot, and nothing seems to be as it seems. And so you go on this long adventure to try and figure out the ins and outs of this plot with Rotter the Hutt, his uncle and auntie, this mysterious gangster who has information on the Empire. And then you go to two particular locations. The first one is Shakara, which for me blew me away because it gave me vibes of Blade Runner. And it was quite dark, it was quite gritty. It was like a gangster casino type planet, but it also had like big buildings, skyscrapers, and it was surrounded in just amazing like grittiness, darkness, and it felt different to what we got in the Mandalorian series. It felt as if like they were kind of making the Mandalorian film a mixture of Blade Runner in the beginning, John Wick in the beginning, because some of the fight sequences with Din Djarin and the gangsters, or even at the beginning when he's blown up the Imperial Guard, was fantastic. Blew me away. It was really good and quite gritty. and really well executed with the fight sequences. The special effects were fantastic. In the beginning of the movie, Shakara is a beautifully dark, gritty planet, and when you're there, you do meet Rotter the Hutt. And you know what? Rotter the Hutt is a character that generally grew on me as the film progressed, because he is the son of Jabba the Hutt. And as you know, Jabba the Hutt was the biggest gangster in the galaxy, and he is now no longer here. So his son immediately gets, labeled with the same negativity as his father, and that's something he is trying to correct, and that is something he's trying to change for himself. And I found that really interesting, that this was a Hutt who wasn't devious, who wasn't evil, who wasn't trying to trick people, he wasn't a gangster, he was just generally a nice young alien individual that's trying to live a peaceful life and not be, not have the pressures of his family's reputation on his shoulders. So I really found that an interesting take on the Hutts. And once again, the Hutts are at the forefront of a Star Wars film. I believe it was the animated Clone Wars series movie that I'm sure the movie also featured a plot that had something to do with the Hutts. So for whatever reason, Star Wars, Disney seemed to want to give us the Hutts. They want to connect the dots with the Hutts. And now that CGI has become so, important in modern Hollywood, they can do so much more with characters this day and age, who before they had to use tremendous puppetry, animatronics, they now can just digitally create them and show you them fighting in a pit. And the whole first half of this film is set on Shakara, and it's about Din the Mandalorian trying to figure out the ins and outs about what's happening with Rotter the Hutt, his family, the connection to this secret gangster who's also connected to the Empire. And it was really interesting, strong stuff. The whole planet is just beautifully set, and you're introduced to a handful of characters during that time on Shakara. So you are introduced to, of course, this particular character who I found really interesting. He is basically this fast food merchant who's got his fast food stall, and Din Djarin approaches him, and he's just looking for answers or looking for information. And this particular character is voiced by Martin Scorsese. And I generally thought his voice work was fantastic. His voice and his tone of voice, how he portrayed this character, just felt so on the money. I thought Martin Scorsese did a brilliant job with this character. And I was pleasantly surprised. There is this returning character from the show and from the animated show. He is a very popular character, and he has a moment in this film where he's helping the Mandalorian in a certain situation, and he's the main pilot for, I guess, the New Republic. So that was interesting to see. And the first half of this movie was interesting, it was great, and then it kind of slips and takes a turn when we end up going to Nahota, I think it was called. Nahota is the second main location, which is the Hutt homeworld. And once you get to Nahota, the Hutt homeworld, where the uncle and the auntie from, the Hutts live there, and they, an event transpires where they now get even heavier involved in the plot. And for me, this is where the film slowed right down. So the film slows down once you leave Shakara and you end up going to, Nahota. And for a film that's like 2.5 hours long, if not more, this film is deliberately aimed at young children, family audiences. I don't know, and this is one of my negativities, if once you left Shakara and it gets to Nahuta and things slow down, I don't know if children would get bored. I don't know if regular Star Wars fans would get bored. I don't know if general audiences, families would get bored. And, would they continue to pay attention to the events that are transpiring? Because once you leave Sakura, things slow right down. And that's probably my biggest negative of this film, is that once you leave one place and go to the other place, the tone and the pacing slows right down, and it really, really, took me, a while to like just pay attention and to keep going. And once you are on Nahuta, there are some still amazing scenes and some amazing sequences. So Grogu doing his meditation in the swamp area, after an event that happens with the Mandalorian, with Din Djarin, and he basically is standing guard and meditating during this time. There's an amazing battle sequence in the Hutt's palace with the dragon snake and the Djarin. I just thought it was fantastic, and the creature itself looks amazing. And what can I tell you? There are some amazing looking creatures in this film. So there really, really was some amazing looking monsters in this film. So you had these things that were in the swamp areas. Then you have this creature who basically was like in the gladiator pit fighting Rotter and the Mandalorian at some point. You had these amazing robots that were in the Hutt compound. You had, obviously, this is from Shakara. That sequence of them on the bike, the hover bike, was absolutely fantastic. This is one point of the plot that really, I found bizarre, because I forgot the name of the character, but basically there's a sequence that happens in the Mandalorian. And what I felt, if I'm truly, truly honest with you, is the film is titled The Mandalorian and Grogu. But really, this whole film, this 2.5 hour plus film, is basically an extended episode, or it is the fourth season. Because as you know, I think each episode of The Mandalorian is like half an hour long. So this was like they had combined 5 episodes of the show The Mandalorian and made it a 2.5+ hour movie. That's what it felt like. And I did enjoy it for the most part, but there is a particular part of this film that I did get puzzled by. So an event transpires and Grogu's now in the swamp. And he's wandering the swamp, he's hungry, and he comes across in the swamp like this hut that's overlooking the swamp, and you've got this alligator lizard type alien who's fishing, and he just walks up to them and steals a fish from his net, and then he befriends him, and something happens, and then this guy helps Grogu, and then you never hear or see him again. And I generally feel that whole scenario was just simply put into the film to give Grogu something to do. The title, it's called The Mandalorian and Grogu, and as you saw in the first 3 seasons, you've seen him developing his powers of the Force. You're seeing Grogu trying to improve on his abilities throughout the course of the show once you discover he's got Force sensitivity. But what I found in the film, he hardly uses the Force. And I found that really bizarre that you had 3 seasons of build up of him being force sensitive, and there were certain scenarios throughout the course of the movie where there's a bomb in front of him, and you would think he would just do that and move the bomb out of his way with his hand, but he doesn't really do that. He just stands there panicking and trying to get the Mandalorian to jump or to run or to fly, and other ways to avoid getting blown up instead of just using the force. And I found certain bits like that throughout the course of the film frustrating. 3 years of build up with the Mandalorian and Grogu, but no real true development for the character of Grogu. Grogu was simply in this film to look cute and cuddly and to be, I hate to say it, a merch seller. That's what Grogu is. And I'm a daft fucker because I bought this. I seen this in the cinema and I went, oh, I'll take that without thinking. So it worked. The merchandise, the promotional machine, it worked on me, and I ended up buying some merch in the theatre. But basically, that's another negativity of The Mandalorian. There's no real development when it comes to Grogu and his abilities and his powers. He's simply put on there on the screen to be cute and cuddly, to sell toys and to drive kids to theatres. And that's all good and well, but that's going to wear out eventually. You really need to develop the character, and you really need to push forward and give him something much stronger to do. And, you've also got these little guys that are back. Another great merch seller, another great, thing to hook the kids in is the little mechanic aliens who work with Grogu and help the Mandalorian throughout certain parts of this film, which was, another thing, that I did enjoy, but it's like this still didn't really give Grogu all these guys enough to do. And speaking of Pedro Pascal himself, one thing I will say about Pedro Pascal, he really does shine in this film as the Mandalorian. He shined in the show as the Mandalorian, and you pretty much get the same kind of stuff that you're seeing in the show with Pedro Pascal. But then it's the action sequences, the fight sequences. They really went out of their way to make this stand out from the show in terms of the fights. And that's something I really, really can say I thoroughly enjoyed about The Mandalorian. Din Djarin, I cannot even see his name. Din Djarin, I think is his name. But in this, he really does stand out, for all the fight sequence. And as I read before I started the review, there were 2 other actors in the costuming, as the Mandalorian, as Din Djarin, and I generally feel it because when you see some of the fight sequences, it feels like John Wick. Like I said, this film, it's a mixture of John Wick, Blade Runner, and of course Star Wars and what we're used to from the Mandalorian. The plot itself was okay. Like I say, it starts off very strong, but then it slows right down and the pacing changes. I wish they did more with Grogu himself, since he's in the title of the film. There's no real development with him. The plot with Rotta the Hutt was interesting, but for me, I would rather they had went down a different path of them chasing after these secret gangsters or politicians or people who are secretly working with the Empire and they're trying to rebuild it. It would have been nice to see some sort of connection with the Empire turning into the First Order or something like that, connecting the Mandalorian to, of course, the sequel trilogy. It would have been nice to have something like that rather than, a Jabba the Hutt gangster storyline again. But like I say, because they have the ability of doing so much now with CGI, they really, push the boat out on showing Rotter, the other aliens, in the very best way they possibly could. And the production of this film is fantastic. The lighting, the sets, the cities that they created were all magnificently well done. What you expect from Star Wars when you're going to Star Wars, you're going to a galaxy far, far away. You want it to feel and look like a place that exists, but is so like alien to us. And you generally get that with most of the Star Wars films and shows, and they generally push the boat out with The Mandalorian to do that again, to give us a film where the worlds look great. Like I say, Shakara was Blade Runner meets John Wick meets Mandalorian. And so the production value in this is fantastic. The story is okay. Grogu didn't do much, and of course Pedro Pascal really done his very best to deliver as the Mandalorian, as he always do. Now, there's one other thing I'm going to mention that I really found interesting, and that was this particular character that was introduced. I think he's been in the show, or he's been in the comics, or he's been in the animated series. I think he was called Embo, and he is a bounty hunter who doesn't speak, but he give the Mandalorian a run for his money. He is working, of course, with the Hutts, and he comes into the movie halfway through. And honestly, like I said before, I was starting to kind of lose patience, or at least I was starting to, not pay attention to what was going on. But once this character re-entered the screen and entered, the story, I generally was drawn back in because I found him so mysterious, and I found his involvement. He doesn't speak, and he has this like wolf-like alien dog who's terrifying. And I just really enjoyed this character and found it so mysterious that I want to know more about him, and I want it to be featured more in later entries in The Mandalorian, or at least the world of Star Wars. And he, like I say, he gave Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, a real run for his money in terms of the fight sequences and his abilities, how he captured the Mandalorian. Basically, he gets involved and he does put up a fight, but he does end up capturing the Mandalorian, which is which leads to another part of the plot later on in the film. But like I say, this generally is just another season of The Mandalorian. 5 episodes, half-hour episodes rolled into a 2.5+ hour movie. First, I would say, hour and a half is fantastic, slows right down, then it picks up again by the end of the movie. Was I satisfied and did I enjoy it? I generally did think this has been my best Star Wars experience in the theatres for a very long time. I was satisfied with The Force Awakens, disappointed in, The Last Jedi, and could not stand The Rise of Skywalker. And that, for me, I had kind of wiped my hands away from Star Wars. I thought, I'm done. They've totally ruined my passion for Star Wars. But The Mandalorian, like I said in the beginning, gave me fresh hope and gave it some fresh blood. Now, I don't think this film's going to break the box office. I don't think it's going to, it's going to like change anything for fans when it comes to Star Wars. But if you're a fan of the show and you're a fan of these characters, I think you at least will enjoy it. And if you hated the if you hated the sequel trilogy, I guarantee you'll have fun with this over the sequel trilogy. And it's nice to have Star Wars back in theaters. It's not going to be a film, I think, that will, it's going to break the box office, like I said before. Hopefully it'll do well. I'm hearing mixed reviews, mixed feelings on it, and a lot of it is to do with the pacing and the timing of the movie, especially if you've got a young family or your kid's going to sit through a 2.5 hour movie. In the pacing, your kids don't have strong, patience, and they don't have, strong, timing. Like if you take a kid to the theater and see like an hour long cartoon movie, and maybe an hour and a half, but then take a kid to a 2.5+ hour movie and expect them to sit through without fidgeting or getting bored and their attention being kept is very hard. In the first hour and a half does do that with this movie, but then, like I say, the second half, it takes a bit of a nosedive in terms of pacing, but picks up again the last half hour. But yes, if I'm going to rate The Mandalorian, I did enjoy it. I thought it was, decent enough, and I'm happy I did see it in theaters. It's nothing new. It's nothing that's going to, I think, change the face of Star Wars. It's just a continuation of the Mandalorian show. So with that said, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think it's decent enough with the work that was put into it to get a 7 out of 10. But that's all really I can say. Great first half, pacing slows down. Grogu didn't do much else other than he's in it to look cute and cuddly to sell toys. Pedro Pascal does fantastic as always. He delivers as the Mandalorian. The plot could have been better, but it was still enjoyable. And there's enough going on in the first half, in the last half hour, that it should entertain you. And that's all I can say about The Mandalorian. But what do you think of The Mandalorian? Did you like it? Did you get yourself a Grogu popcorn bucket? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, and I'll catch us all at the next one.